My name is Susanna Magenheimer, Random Artist 222, and today I'm doing a process video for a journaling piece I was thinking about. I had an idea based on personal experience lately of how alone I felt through some family issues that have been going on in the back with my parents. And that feeling of aloneness led me to thinking about that I'm not alone, and turning it into positivity. And these amazing friends that have stepped forward to help me, in a sense, add to my wings in order to fly. So this piece is dedicated to my friends who give me those extra wings to fly. I imagine the wings kind of floating down. And when I saw these 3 swallows on Sean Pettit's website in a collage pack, my mind blew as to what I really wanted to do. I went ahead and started collecting things once I saw, once my idea of the floating wings came to me and this swallowbird trio. And so I started collecting things. I'm going to put this to the side for a second. So I started creating textures, and I used embossing folders to do these because I knew they were wings, right? So I wanted things that were botanical, that were organic, that were representative things with wings. And when you create journaling pieces, you know, when you're first starting out, stay with stuff that makes you happy. If you love the ocean, then journal about the ocean. Find those things about the ocean. Use colors of the ocean. If you like plants, go with that. You know, it doesn't have to be complicated or overly thought out. So I created these little embossing folder. I used the embossing folder to create these little texture elements. And I think you can see that close up. Yep. And then I found these skeleton leaves, and I thought they were very wing-like. So I thought too that I would add these to my piece. And then I started thinking about, and this other thing too. These are created from silicone molds. And I have several videos in my library that you can watch where I use pouring medium to create these. They're very flexible, as you can see, but they're also flat. And you can gesso them, use alcohol inks on them. The alcohol pearls work beautifully on them, and adds to a dimensional textural element to my journaling page. So I have those in reserve. And then I thought about stencils, and I pulled out my Sean Pettit stencils, and I love hers. They're very organic and beautifully done. I love this wallpaper one, which I'm featuring today. And again, it just led to that botanical wings, this beautiful butterfly. Look how large these are. Just so I can be kind of accurate here. They're almost 6 inches in wingspan. These are huge, beautiful butterflies. So I definitely wanted those. And these reminded me of flowers or organic flowers, abstract flowers, honeycombs. It just had that vibe that I wanted. So let me put this aside. And like I said, this was one of my starting motivators after my idea. And what I decided to do was create jelly prints with them. And these are some of them that I created. And there are many videos on how to do jelly prints. I can show you that another day if you want to leave in the comments that you want to see how I created these. They're fun to do. They're kind of addictive to do. Oh, and lastly, don't be afraid to use rubber stamps in your art. They are very useful. They are beautiful. There are amazing designs that are out there, and I incorporate them into my journaling, into my mixed media art as either a focal point or a background piece or whatever. You can cut them out, emboss them, do whatever you want. I like this one because it's kind of like reflecting my life right now, the journey, the reflections, discovery, trying to enjoy the journey, even with all the stuff that life hands you. And these are by Darkroom Door. So I'll be using this today as well. So like I said, I pulled together the elements that I wanted, and I used tissue paper and different obviously I used the jelly prints that I did of Sean Pettit's stencil. And I picked some botanical tissues and just other things lying around your craft room. Don't feel that you have to be so, specific. You can even buy blank tissue paper and stamp on it and create your own background paper. But this is a way for me to use some of my stash and some of my pieces. And obviously when you put these on your journaling pages, you don't necessarily want to go, okay, how do I remember these now that I put them on here and I can't glue them while they're on there? Obviously you got to pull them off. What I have always liked to do is have my camera handy. And what I do is once I like the layout, I take a photo. Now I have my roadmap to my background, creating an old-timey look piece of paper. This started out as white, as white digital paper. And what I did is I printed out, again, from Sean's website. She has this really great naturalist library. As you can see, this was the piece of paper here. I just wanted the top because I wanted that naturalist library to be the focus, one of the focus pieces. So basically all you do, see here's the white, is you scrunch it up. While it's white and dry and you just printed it out of your laser printer. Then you bring it back to your desk. And I sprayed mine with water because the more effect you can get to it, the more distressed you can get to it, the better. And I sprayed it with different light brown sprays. Or if you don't have a spray, you can definitely do what I just showed you with a bigger brush and just create a more tan-like feel to it, or tan-like color to it. And then once that's done and dried, I came back and I already did it to this one. I don't know if you can see that. I have these little burnish lines, and those come from the squishing and how paper handles after years and years of use, and the tattering. So when I tore it, I obviously created that tattering effect by the way I just showed you. So now that this is dry and I sprayed it, I'm going to crinkle it again. And the reason I'm crinkling it is because now I want to take this, and you can either take it from the ink pad, or you can just come in with this, and you're going to hit those edges. You see that? I'm just hitting those edges. I don't want to hit the paper, and you can even create your own edges. Just bend it, and again, run it through. And then when you open it up, look, you have that nice little burned kind of old feel, school feel to the paper. So that's what I did to create the effect here. And this is going to, like I said, be one of my focal points. Okay, so now I'm just going to glue some of these pieces together. It's always good too to put the glue on the back of what you're doing as well as onto the surface. You get a better adhesion effect. It's like it's like there's suction or something, and they just take better. So I went ahead and let the matte medium dry, and for those of you keeping score, I was using the Liquitex matte medium. I love it because it allows me to add color back onto this, even though it seals. It still has an absorbable quality that I like. And I'm also busting out the handy wipes because of the next part coming up. So once you lay out your background with the papers you want, now is the time to add your texture before you add your paint. If I do this step after I add my paint, then I'm trying to paint over what I just did, and you don't want to do that. So it's kind of a natural progression on how you do this type of artwork. So I went ahead to save time And I showed you earlier some embossing paper to give me that texture from the embossing and also the texture from the paste. And for this, I'm using Liquitex Light Modeling Paste. And so I'm going to do this one little corner over here. Okay. And I kind of just eyeball it, because since you're going to be, let me get a handy wipe ready, because if you go in a place where you don't want, you can still pull it back, because that matte medium gives you somewhat of a seal, like I said, so that you can pull paint and stuff off without necessarily ruining what you have underneath. So I know this is kind of like, okay, about 2 inches by 2 inches. So this acts like its own glue, so I don't need to glue the back of this. So I'm just going to take this and apply it like so, very thin layer. Just so that it can act like my glue. I'm just kind of measuring. I still need a little bit more this way. And I think I'm ready to add this. So now I'm going to put it in here like so. Yep, tap it down. You don't want to smush it down, because then you're going to lose your embossing efforts until it, until this all dries up. And then what I wanted to do was just, create a little texture on the edges of this. Kind of like what, if you can see here, what I've done here is create some texture that when I cover it up with paint, you can catch that? When I cover that up with paint, I'm going to have this fabulous texture going on, and all the nice little raises that I can highlight with a wax. Modeling paste, when it dries, is hard, so you don't want to get this, if you're working with a stencil and you're applying it through a stencil, you want to make sure you wash it right away. Okay, so I've had about an hour for this to dry, which allows me to think about the piece, and that's how I kind of like to roll. I'm going to try to hold this up so you can see all that yummy texture right in here. You'll see more of it as I do it, but it's had a chance to dry, and so now I got to think about it. But one thing I do is I kind of want to see where my layout of my thoughts of my focal pieces are going to be. And like I talked about, these sense of falling, not necessarily falling, but all the wings that help me in my journey, kind of where I want to see them. I don't want to lose this naturalist library piece that I put in there. And the next part is going to be a little scary, because I'm going to be painting over this. But that's why you want to have a bag of handy wipes handy. Joke. And because it'll allow you to push back some of the paint if you get too much on it. One reason that, again, like sealing with the medium. I like using many different kinds of paints, but this time I'm going to be using Paper Artsy Fresco paints. I like them because they do dry fast, and the color selection is very vibrant and amazing. Because I'm electing to make my butterfly wings in this pink tones, I wanted something that would contrast really well with them. So I went with this. I wanted to have a dark color, a medium range within the color, well, it's not necessarily the color family, but a nice contrast to the teal, and then a lighter mermaid to kind of blend it out and tone it back. And you hear that a lot in mixed media, is toning back. I'm not necessarily a fan of completely toning back, because sometimes I think it's really pretty when you have all that color on there. Again, it's a personal choice. So we're going to start with the teal. Oops. And I just want to make sure I have a handy wipe handy. I'm just going to get in there and paint these. And then I'm going to come back and highlight these tips with, there's different ways to do it, but I like to highlight with wax. And I guess since I'm rolling this way, maybe I'll just start doing this. And you can see that the butterfly starts to go away, and I don't want a lot of it to go away, so I'm going to just bring that back a little bit, like that. Okay, and I think I'm happy with that, and I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry. This dries really quick. So I will be back in a second. So now comes more fun. This is the home stretch, as I call it, where you now are putting your concept together. You have your background, it's painted. There's still some highlighting to do, but that's fine. This is where I'm like, okay, I'm going to use this. Yes, I think I will. And when I do use rubber stamps on journal pages, I try to find a color that's very similar to, not similar, but would make it go, not be so glaring, but in the background. So I do swatches like this. It's easier for me than putting them in little plastic things and stuff like that, because I can hold it right next to the paper or whatever I'm working on and go, okay, right now I'm torn between moss and fern. There's peeled, but it's way too dark. So also the reason I like using Archivals and some of the other brands that are out there, W+9, Colorbox, Memento inks, are permanent. So you can do stuff over them and it's not going to go splooshing all over the place. So I'm sticking with Archival in this case because I like the greens in this one. And like I said, I'm tending it towards the moss. It might be the fern, but we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and use the darkroom door. I'm not putting this on a wood block. As a matter of fact, I'm going to take this release paper off because I don't want that either. I want it so that I can just touch. I don't want it so that I'm like getting it in there. And also, let's see, I think the moss was what I was going for. Yes, and what I always do is test stamp, and I'm pretty safe doing it on top of this. I'm not going to ruin anything. I don't want to go to the outermost edges on this because I want it to look natural, organic. I don't want it to have a harsh edge on it. So let me stamp it off to the side. Okay, so what I do always, I do a first stamp and then a second generation stamp, which I didn't re-ink it. It's just the ink that was left from the first one, leftovers. And I think I like this color, and I think I'm going to go with the second generation stamping on this one. So I'm going to use the same color ink. And I think I want something in this corner. Yeah, then it looks like it's popping out from behind this. That's cool. That makes me happy. And by the way, this one is Metalique Wax from Prima Fenobar in the rich copper. I wanted that to kind of pop it a little bit. I was talking to you about these raised pieces. I'm off here doing the same thing, just putting some on my finger and then taking it off here a little bit. And just with the lightest touch. Because every time you introduce color or you introduce something, it changes the piece. and it might change it in a way that you didn't think was going to work, or maybe need something more. So again, I'm, like I said, doing the lightest flicks of my finger over these. Also, what's handy dandy is Purell wipes. They really help when I've gone too hardcore with some ink. Sometimes they pull the ink back for me. They've definitely pulled paint back easy without destroying the whole piece. So just so you can see, that copper, yum. Again, that copper, and see it's making all that goodness pop. Yum. Why shouldn't art be like food? You can go yum. Okay. So, again, I'm trying to figure out if I want to go with the large butterfly. Maybe there was a smaller one I saw in here. She has registration marks right here. So I know that this is the front of the stencil. So if you flip your stencils and just get used to it, you can see where it's definitely got a lip to it, and you don't want that because you get seepage. Okay, so I'm going for it with the oops, sorry if I moved you guys. I'm going for the butterfly, and I'm going to bring in a purple. And this is Liquitex Brilliant Purple. Okay, so I'm just pressing down so all that purple has a chance to come onto this. I actually saw Sean doing this on one of her videos, and it was so cool. I never really have these masks to think about doing that, but that was a really cool idea. And that did not happen the way I thought it would happen. So, contingencies, right? This has enough paint and stuff left that I can just work that as part of my background. So you're seeing crisis management in work, in process here. So I'm just going to move some of that purple around. And that's why handy wipes are so handy, because sometimes you do something and it doesn't work quite as you thought it would. Okay, so using the paint wasn't my thing right now. So I went back to ink, and I thought I'd use the same color I used up here. Let me move that back that way. But then I thought I'm going to have too much green going on here. So I'm going to bring this in a deeper purple and see how that goes. I'm going to go right here, because my birds are going to go right about here. That. Yep, so that's where I want it. Okay. Ta-da! That looks great. Love a happy ending, huh? And now we're in the home stretch. Okay, so I set up my butterfly wings the other night when I was playing with the idea of this and kind of putting things on, seeing how they worked. And I took a photograph of how I wanted my wings to come kind of falling down. So now I'm just going to glue them on. And I like using this, it's a planner glue pen from Prima, but I'm telling you, this stuff sticks. And I like that I can easily apply it. So that's what I'm going to do. Like that. All right, so I'm going to do that and then come back. All right, so I went ahead and glued this off camera because it's hard to use a glue stick and kind of be sideways and everything, but basically I just adhered it. It's good to go. I used some 3M tape, which has like a foam cushion to it, to just elevate the words a little bit for myself. And one of the trends I'm seeing out there in journaling is having like a black and white element within all the color. So I went ahead and left the swallows as is, but I am going to off camera go through and apply shadowing to give that extra dimension that will make this pop. And you'll see that when I get to the final photo showing the final project. I'm going to be adding some white ink too to this. But basically that's it. I hope you liked, and if it inspired you, please remember to subscribe and like, and have a great day. Thank you.